What's up, heathens? Today we've got another look at my interview with Skeppo, or Jen, as she is known elsewhere. She's known as Skeppo here on YouTube. Definitely visit the links down below in the description for her YouTube channel, as well as links to my other social media. Today, Jen will be going a bit deeper into her Muslim story, about what it was like for her to be married to a Muslim man in another country, specifically about the Quranic verses on beating women, as well as what it was like to be under the thumb of a sharia law, marriage, what punishments were like under the sharia law type of marriage, as well as her own take on the moderate Muslims here in the United States. So I hope that you do enjoy. Please don't forget to subscribe if you find these interviews quite interesting. Leave a like if you do indeed like it. I'll see y'all later.
Not that there aren't issues. I kind of got off on a tangent, but if that kind of explains a little bit better them taking it literally, and I absolutely agree. There are parts of the Bible that say yes, kill the gays. But I guess have you read the Quran? Have you picked it up and read through it at all?
Well, I haven't read it cover to cover. I haven't read major sections of it. But, I've actually run into this curious thing now where I'm doing my research, but I think he's a YouTuber that both of us watch, Kareem Metwali.
Yeah.
Yeah. It really kind of made me stumble to hear him say, if you read a translation of it, then it's not, it's inherently not a good translation because it's not in the original. And I'm just sitting there well, why in the world do these translations exist? It just seems to me like it's a useless language if you can't convey a message. If you can't,
because he's full of shit. It's not true. If you take actually, I should do a video about this. If you take the same surah because you have translations and transliterations of the Quran, right? So you have somebody's opinion. They're telling you what the translation, but then they're adding their own opinion. So a good example is, say you have a surah that talks about the difference between what a hijab means. So in one, it says to rip the bottom layer of your skirts and draw it up over your bosom. In another translation, it says rip the bottom of your skirts and draw them up over your head. And then another translation says same thing, but draw it up over your face. So, but the direct translation in Arabic is rip the bottom layer of your skirts and draw it up over your bosom. So but it's very little difference. And it makes a difference when it comes, like Kareem was talking about the passage where it talks about it's okay to beat your wife. So in one it says you can tap her lightly with miswak. Another one says you can hit her, and another one, you know what I mean? But it's one word, and it's all bullshit because they all say the same thing. It's a matter of the word beat is still there, and the word make or be your wife is to be obedient to you is still there. So whether it says you can hit her with a stick or not, it's still there. Do you see what I'm saying? So they use these little oh, well, the translation's different. You don't understand. You have to read it in Arabic. You really have to know. I get that all the time. I read Arabic. I've read it in Arabic. It's the exact same thing. So they can't talk, obfuscate.
Yeah.
On purpose. So
well, go ahead.
No, you go.
Okay. Well, actually, today I was on a call with 1877Y Islam, and I was asking questions of them, which it actually took me. I had to go through one guy because he got fed up with me asking questions, and I got
Nice.
I got a woman. And it just so happened that the next question I was on was about, the wife beating in the Quran. And she went through a good 10 to 15 minute like explanation of that entire, like, I think it was Quran 434 or
Yeah,
something like that.
434.
Yeah. And she like goes through like a 10 to 15 minute thing, and then gets to the part where it says to beat your wife, and she goes, "Yeah, it says to hit them, but it means to tap them lightly." And
Right.
I imagine like somebody taking their finger and like flicking the woman's nose, like, no, no. Um, but then, she's like, well, that translation is bad, and I brought up the point about, the language being useless, if that's the case. Like the way that they argue it makes it seem like the language is useless. And then what I did was, as I was talking to her, I actually went to Quran.com and looked it up, and it says strike her. Like in the translation that I had, it said
Mm-hmm.
scourge, which means the same thing as striker. I mean, it all means to hit a woman. I mean, sure, there's a process, but I
Right.
mean, even with me, I live in northern Alabama. Trust me, there's a process for beating your wife down here, and I would say that it's about the same thing as what's in the Quran. Uh, Give or take a couple steps. I think they actually jump a couple steps down here in
Well, yeah,
Alabama.
because
But
well, in the Quran, you can beat her for even thinking she might disobey. In Hadith as well, like they say, if you even suspect that she's going to be disobedient, go ahead, just err on the side of caution and beat her.
I can, sorry, I know I shouldn't be laughing at this, but I just imagine somebody waking up in the morning, seeing their wife, and just smacking her across the face like, I know what you're planning on doing.
Right?
I mean,
So
because
it's crazy.
well, I mean, I laugh at that because it's just so ridiculous. Like, I'm not
It
trying to
is.
laugh at domestic abuse or anything like that. But I mean, just it just seems so ridiculous. Like for somebody to think that, to actually
Mm.
think, well, I'm gonna slap you because I think you're gonna do something wrong. I saw that twitch in your eye and I didn't like it, so I knocked it the fuck out.
So like I was sent away twice by my ex-husband because I was disobedient. He sent me to Saudi once to stay with my ex sister in law, and he sent me to France once to learn how to be a better wife. So I had to go hang out with some Algerian Muslims.
So
Um,
what caused both of those times?
Once a security guard at the grocery store spoke to me too long. He flirted. When I would go by myself shopping. He controlled the money. I worked, but he would only put in the amount that I needed at the store that I was at, so I couldn't leave. He kept me as a prisoner, basically. Um, and he went shopping with me once, and he noticed the security guard was talking to me too long, a little bit too long, and it upset him. And then he talked to someone else that worked there, and he said that I had stood outside too long on too many occasions talking to the security guard. So I needed
Okay.
to be sent away. And the second time was the same kind of transgression. I had a phone call he didn't like. He bugged our telephone, and he'd listen to my phone calls. And if I spoke about something he didn't like, I would
Wow.
get punished. Yeah, and he was
Bug he
within the law. He was within his rights to do that.
he he bugged your phone?
Yeah, yeah. And
Wow.
cameras in front and back of our house so that nobody could come and go without him knowing about it. But again, by law, he was allowed to do that.
Wow. That seems really radical to me. I mean, normally, like here in America, if it's like, yeah, he's got our phones bugged and cameras on the entrance and exits of our houses because he doesn't want anybody coming and going. It's like, that might be a sign of a bad relationship.
Just a little bit, right? And my paycheck went into his account. We had separate accounts. Muslims, it's another thing. They're very big on, they claim independence for women because the woman's money is hers and the man's money has to support the family. This is where the MRAs come in to effect and be like, see, it's not fair for men. But you're controlled. So if your husband says, give me your money, you're going to do it. And it doesn't matter Islamically whether I had the law on my side or not. And so I would call him on the phone and be like, well, I'm at, say, the clothing shop and I need 50 pounds or whatever. And he would transfer only that 50 pounds into the account so I could pay for that. And that was it. I had no access to money aside from that at all. but I allowed him to do that. I mean, it was my paycheck. I could have said, no, put it into this account. So, you when you're brainwashed and it's like you have no control, and that's the whole, you're told in Islam that your husband, just like in the Mormon church, the man is the head of the household. He makes the decisions. I'm not entirely against someone being in charge, because sometimes the ship may not have a captain and you might be in trouble. But I probably say that as well, having grown up in a very patriarchal religion where I didn't have the same rights even in the Mormon church as I did as my father and my husband and brother say. So it's I don't know. I'm off on a tangent again.
No, that's fine. So yeah, getting back to the relationship between you and your now ex-husband. After you got sent away a couple times. I mean, I know that you said that he kind of snowballed radically. Like, at what point did you, I guess, want to get out?
Um, they took my kids. I was grumbling too much and causing too many problems. I was speaking up with his family, the cousins. You had a bunch of girls who were 15 years old brought over from another country to marry cousins. So first cousins marrying first cousins. And these girls were locked up and kept in houses and not allowed to do much. And I was alarmed and disgusted. So I spoke up too much. I opened my mouth too much. So it was hard to control me. And I got home from work and my kids were gone. And we were in the UK at the time, and they had taken them to Pakistan. And I was told I was never going to see them again unless I fell in line and did as I was supposed to. So I went to Pakistan, and I spent 6 months trying to convince him that the marriage was good and intact. I mean, we'd been to Pakistan before, but and then I convinced him to move back to the UK. So we spent several years in the UK before I told him that we were going away to America on holiday, just as a vacation. And I had arranged everything in advance. And when we got here, I told him that we weren't coming back. And that I wanted a divorce. And it was bad. Just the abuse, the real abuse started after that. I mean, he was so far away, he couldn't really do a whole lot, but he had family here. And even to this day, I suffer from them.
Wow.
So, but he doesn't have anything to do with the kids now. I mean, this is a long time ago. So he fought me for a long time. But the thing that it wasn't them even just taking my kids. I mean, that was the thing, obviously, that kept me in for so long was my babies. And my mom left, I had mentioned before, when I was 8. My dad was abusive and threatened to kill her. And he told her that if she tried to take us, he would find us and murder her and take us, or he would take us and she would never see us again. So she left without us and left us in a very, very abusive, bad situation. So I wasn't going to do that to my kids. I almost did. I was convinced that I was an unfit mother, and because he would, being physically abusive is one thing, but emotionally drilling in your head how you're a piece of shit all the time, and you're dirty and disgusting, and you're mentally ill, and it's just like a constant thing. So you start to believe it. Not that I'm perfect, because I can act crazy sometimes, but I was terrified that I wasn't going to be able to take care of them. And, but my son, boys are raised to not respect women, and it's a different kind of respect. It's a different, yes, they respect women, but it's different. So my son was like 3, and, I told him to clean up. He made a big, huge mess with, he'd taken flour out of a bag and just poured it all over my living room. I was furious. And I told him to clean it up. And he looked up at me and he said, "No, I don't have to. I'm a boy." And his dad shook his head and said, "Yeah, you clean it up. He doesn't have to." And I was just like, I said, no, clean it up. And my son hit me. And I went to discipline him, and my ex said, no, you don't ever touch him. My 3-year-old son. So I had no
Wow.
rights.
Well, you say that there's a different kind of respect. I'm wondering if you can elaborate on that a little bit, like, because what it seems, what it's sounding like to me is that they're using what's called the ambiguity fallacy whenever whenever they're arguing with people that are bringing up these points against the Islamic culture. So I'm kind of curious if you could elaborate on this respect, like because you said that they respect women, but it's a different kind of respect.
Well, women are their property. So you're going to treat women with the respect that you would give your property, something that you're going to take care of, something that you own. Some people don't; they mistreat their property, but for the most part, that's the way you're meant to be. But they hold women up. They say that you're like a pearl, a gem. You're a beautiful thing and soft and to be set apart and held up to a higher standard. So when you disobey, it's bad because you're held up to a higher standard, because you're almost like angelic. You're a woman. So all the feminine qualities that makes you so wonderful and beautiful and amazing and soft and makes you also very weak. So you need protection by these men who also know what's best for you, because you're just a woman. And in Islam, a woman's brain is not the same as a man's. Like your testimony is worth half. You can't inherit the same as a man. Your IQ is lower than a man. Like everything about you is lesser, slightly, not completely, but just slightly. So it's his duty, and he's such a wonderful man by taking such great care of this creature that's defenseless, but soft, but also a life giver. So that enables them to set a woman up and also abuse her, because he knows best. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah.
So that's how they explain it. How a woman is this thing, but also needs to be controlled.
Well, this is radical. I'd have to say this is radically different from what I saw in Kareem's video. Because he was like women can slap us and make us twerk and all this other stuff, and I'm just sitting there like,
No.
I don't know about that.
Kareem is an SJW Muslim. I mean, he's the equivalent of an SJW. He also that line that Islam invented feminism, which is insane. So they spout off stuff like that. His idea of Islam, and I made a video response to him, and he responded to me saying that he watched it, but he wasn't going to respond because I spoke truth. As an ex-Muslim, I spoke truth in it, and people said I went too easy on him, but it's because he's never experienced Islam under an Islamic regime. He's only lived in the West. He's only experienced this Islam. It's different. Like I said, the Muslims in Europe are very different. So, and I called him out on that. He says that his version of Islam is great, but even with his version of Islam, I said to him, "What do you think should happen to apostates like me? What do you think should happen to gay people?" Because even Muslims like him will say that apostates like me should be killed, or if Allah wills it. See, that's the caveat. If Allah wills it. If it happens to happen, it's not the worst thing in the world, because Allah willed it. Not that I would do it myself. He's not saying I want to kill you, but that's what needs to happen if Allah wills it. So he won't answer the questions because every Muslim has the same answer. But you have to point that out, because even their version of moderate Islam, like Kareem, or Adam Saleh, or Fusi, Yusuf, they're even for their moderate version of Islam, women don't have rights. Muslims lie. That's the other thing. It doesn't matter who What? How? Every Muslim will lie to you. They will say, this is what Islam is. This is like Kareem's videos. And that's why he didn't like it, because I called him out on the lies and the misrepresenting what Islam is. Because you're taught and told, if you bring people to Islam based on a lie, once you've become a Muslim, you can't leave. So you're doing the person a favor. You know better. You know what's best for their soul. They're kafirs who, shaitans in them. So, or they don't understand. For their own good, you have to bring them to Islam. By any means, whether it's politically, through violence, or through lying. So when you have people like Kareem say, this is what Islam is, I give them a pass because they've been in the West and they haven't lived under Sharia law. Like, I lived under Sharia law, and I also lived as a Muslim in Europe and in other Islamic countries that we weren't under Sharia law, but the law pretty much is guided by Islam. So you have different degrees of Sharia, and he has his rose-colored glasses on, and he sees Islam differently, but he's also being disingenuous because he knows the other side of Islam, and he's choosing to not convey that for the, you know what I mean? So he's two-faced, and he knows he's being two-faced. So they all do it. And what I'm trying to say is, when a Muslim looks at you or in a video or anything and talks to you about what Islam is, like that whole thing about the Quran being different translations. Well, if it's the wrong translation, it's the Arabic's off, or, they're lying. They know exactly what it means. They know exactly what they're allowed to do, but they will not tell you that because you can't handle it. Does that make sense? And 100% of the time, a Muslim will lie to you. Absolutely. Watch it. It's like my ex-mother-in-law, a psychiatrist working in a hospital with Westerners, right? Her secretary, who she had been close to for 30 years, she would have her over for tea, and they would talk about Islam, they would talk about world events and all these great things. The second that woman walked out the door, she was talking shit. The second, and to her face, I watched her tell that woman the same thing. We were talking about Surah An-Nisa, about being able to beat women, and to her face, she said, nowhere in the Quran does it say that. It doesn't say, not even that you could push them or anything. And I'm like, yes, it does, because I was learning about Islam at the same time. And she looks at me and she says, no, it doesn't. And after the woman leaves, she says to me, you don't ever tell the kafir that. What are you doing?
Okay.
It's like they do it. I'm not, a lot of people say not all, not all, not all. All. Every single last one. If they are a believing Muslim, they will lie to you.
Okay. So,
and every ex-Muslim will say that.
Yeah. Well, okay. So, I mean, that's very curious to me, because, I mean, what it seems like is that there's some kind of concerted effort, in the Muslim community, either in America or abroad, that is hell bent on stifling that part of Islam and putting on this face of Islam that where you don't beat women, but at the same time you actually, I mean, like they acknowledge, yeah, it does say that you can beat women, but to everybody, like it's two-faced, I think is what you had said. So yeah, that's very odd.